Now, you raise an interesting point when it comes to these livable cities and what happens with townships and informal settlements, of which, of course, we have many in South Africa. I think the key learning there is that as we try and improve living conditions for people living in those places, is to follow what has already been built. Just like you've all seen those sort of graphics of what happens when architects design a beautiful footpath in concrete around a building, and then you see how people walk across the grass, right? And they make a new path, which doesn't look very nice, but it's much more efficient, you know? We've got to follow what people have currently built, the sort of city layouts that have organically emerged. We should be enhancing that and we should be adding greater services to those sorts of layouts rather than trying to wipe them out and replace them with sort of concrete towers. Now, there have been terrible disasters, terrible fires that have taken place in some of those low cost developments in other parts of the world. But it's not just that. Again, I come back to the ideas of Jane Jacobs of how when, again, New York City and many of the American cities tried to gentrify what they termed then to be slums, is they tore down these very eclectic, very livable, very sort of emergent buildings and replaced them with planned settlements, which end up being very sort of Soviet looking, very industrial, very brutalist concrete blocks, which are not good for safety and they're not good for community development. And they actually end up sort of enhancing things like poverty and sort of just systemic oppression, which is kind of the opposite of what we want. So as we do to try and improve the living standards of people living in informal places, what you really want to do is help them to live their best lives within their communities, but with better quality building, with better access to services, and with better access to things like, of course, safety and security too. So services not just in terms of water and electricity, but also in terms of things like access to policing and education. So we want a bit of everything. Again, we don't want to replace and homogenize those communities. We really want to embrace that sort of eclecticness that is there already and rather just enhance the degree of access to all things that we want to flourish as human beings.